Hey, what's going on, parents? Dr. Andrew here, pediatric nervous system focused chiropractor at Thrive Chiropractic. And I want to walk you through a little bit of what to expect with your experience at Thrive. And in the midst of doing that, let's talk about what makes our approach a little bit unique or a little bit different than that traditional healthcare focus. To do that, I've got my friend of the Fuse Box poster here. This Neuro Fuse Box poster is my favorite way to explain what's different about our approach rather than that traditional health, and that directly connects to what that initial process looks like. This is just like a fuse box in your house. Say a fuse to the kitchen blows, all the secondary downstream stuff like the fridge, the oven, the microwave, whatever it is, isn't going to work, right? In that situation, you don't go on a shopping spree and buy all new appliances. You realize there's some sort of underlying cause. That's what this word up here says. I know you might not be able to read everything here, but that cause or that why behind the scenes is what you would think, right? There's a reason why this is taking place. Same deal here. The right-hand column is different symptoms, different challenges, different struggles that someone might be dealing with. And this might look like hormonal regulation or GI stuff. It might look like anxiety and stress and sensory things, or emotional overwhelm, or aches and pains and headaches and migraines. It could be anything. But regardless of what that symptom is here, traditionally in healthcare, the focus is there's different ways to manage or mask that, right? There's medications, therapies, drugs, interventions, different surgeries. There's different ways we can address those symptoms. I'm not necessarily going to say those interventions are good or they're bad, but they are always focused on that secondary downstream part, right? They're trying to mask or manage the symptoms, not address that cause, not address the why. That is the piece that we are obsessed with. Since your brain, since your nervous system controls every single function in your body, if there's some sort of blown fuse or stress or obstruction here at that behind the scenes level, well then naturally everything downstream of that is going to be impacted, right? So to kind of summarize all that, right hand column here, the symptoms, the struggles, that matters. Of course, we care about what's going on in your life, your kid's life, whatever those struggles are, that is relevant to the story, but it doesn't really tell us what's going on behind the scenes. So when we dig into how we can help, yes, step one is listening. Step one is connecting with what's going on, because we want to dig into those little symptoms and those whys. It's going to be different than just the questionnaire or the boxes you checked on the typical, healthcare, overview summary and before a visit in the past, because we're going to say, all right, well, how did these little early life stresses for Johnny when he was a fussy baby or dealing with ear infections, how does that connect to the sensory struggles that are going on today, or whatever the story is? So we want to dig into that history. We want to understand the why and the behind the scenes, but then that's not the end of it, right? That is usually, if they do it at all, the end of where that healthcare focus is for most providers. We've got to go one layer deeper and say, what is actually taking place functionally, neurologically? And that's where the scans come in. Those scans, they let us dig into the nervous system and measure the function and not just that symptomatic level. So we can see, how are we actually handling stress? What is going on in everyday life? Do we have those blown fuses or stresses or obstructions to that normal communication pathway taking place? Once we understand that, can marry the scans and the story to how can we actually help. And that's the next step in that process, is figuring out, what does that care plan need to look like for this individual or that child? How much stress has been there? How long has it been there? And what does that manifest as neurologically with scan findings? So that analysis, that reviewing of everything, combining it all, is what happens in between your first visit, where we collect all that information, digging into history, doing your scans. Then between those visits, we go in and analyze that care plan, put together whatever makes most sense. And then the big reveal, day 2, when you come back for those reports, is when we get to say, all right, this is what we found. This is how it's connected to those challenges and those stresses and those goals you have for your child. And now this is what we can actually do about it. And that is the super cool part, is we get to have an action plan, right? It's not just more information. It is well, where do we go from here and what's next? And then those scans, they don't go away, right? Everything we use to determine what that initial game plan is then what we track as we go throughout care. We'll do those scan intervals those scan updates at regular intervals to make sure that we're seeing the changes and that your kid is getting the impact and the results that they need. So I hope that helps. If you've been following us, if you've been looking online and you're like, this seems really interesting, but what is involved in that? That is that 2-step process. Get all the information and then dig into, what does that mean for your child and how we can help. Reach out if you have any questions on that, if you want to touch base on more of those details, or if you want to get your kid checked out and scanned. We'd love to help your family thrive and help them be at their best.